everyone. My name is Jessica Dotson, and I'd like to welcome you to today's presentation, Day 1 of our Real-Time Business Intelligence Training. Today we're going to teach you how to point and click your way to real-time business intelligence. Before we get started, I just want to review a few logistics. We are recording today's presentation, so we're going to make it available on JackBe.com later today, presentation and recording. And then during the presentation, it's a very hands-on training course today. So we want to encourage you guys to ask as many questions as you have. Type them in the question box or the chat window in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout the presentation, and then time permitting, hopefully we'll have time for Q&A. A little background about JackBe. JackBe is a leading solution provider of real-time business intelligence. We're globally deployed to over 100 enterprise and government agencies. Hopefully you were able to join us yesterday where we talked about some use cases that our customers are exploring today with real-time business intelligence. If not, we'll quickly review what we went over today, which is all about the business case of real-time business intelligence. So where does that apply? How is this different from what you're doing today? Our three differentiators that we consider to be a real-time business intelligence platform: real-time, self-service, and pervasiveness, and then how our platform, Presto, delivers this value to your organization. So today's speakers, our instructors. First, we got John Krupe, our Chief Technology Officer. John was formerly the CTO of Sun Solar Practice and Sun Distinguished Engineer. And then joining him today for some demos are going to be Chris Warner, our VP of Marketing. Chris brings 20 years of experience in the software industry at different companies like Oracle, Software AD, and OpenText. So today's agenda is very straightforward. What we're going to try to do is just help you understand JackBe's real-time business intelligence platform. So we're just going to give you an overview of the components in the platform, review our Presto Power User Training course. This is a new course that we have available now, and what we're trying to do today is just condense our 2-day Power User Training course into a 1-hour webinar training course. So hopefully what we'll try to do is help you build BI apps using Presto in just about an hour. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll just turn it over to John.
Great. Thanks, Jess. So as we go through today, you're going to see us moving very quickly, where everything we're showing you is live and actually running off our cloud, and showing how, from our developer community, everything can be done in real time. So we'll show you everything exactly as it is. There's nothing canned here. And because of that, we want you to understand the speed at which we can develop things and the speed at which you can go from data to information to solution. So there's a few things you have to know about Presto. It's a real-time intelligence platform that really is made up of 3 main components. It has mashups, which are really the data source or information sources, and those could be located anywhere in your data center. It could be located on the cloud. It can be located in your partner's organization. Then the mashups are the way to actually put the data together very quickly. So think about mashups as a way to quickly visually connect data and merge it and sort it, do all the sorts of things live and in real time that traditionally you had to do through developer integration. So there's a dramatic speed enhancement in being able to use mashups. And then apps. As we all know, apps have become extremely popular, but apps are really these full-blown mini applications that run and connect into live enterprise data sources, have security end-to-end, and can be delivered pervasively to SharePoint, to portals, to iTablets, to iPads, to smartphones, whatever you may have that has a modern browser. Okay? Now we're going to talk a little bit about the different elements in Presto and the components that they have. So there's really 3 personas that we talk about. There's Presto is really designed to be self-service, but as we all know that we require IT and developers to do complex things, heavy lifting, security, governance, and sometimes there's things that are just too complex to do visually. So developers still have a large play in this. However, we try to have more of a Lego or building block approach, where if there's something a power user can't do visually, either through point and click or wiring things together, then they can go to a developer, and this developer doesn't have to be a Java level developer or .NET. It could just be somebody who understands scripting and XML to build things that can be used in the platform. So as you see the color coding here, is really, it represents the different personas, the ability to point and click and create things from a power user perspective. You'll hear us talking and showing wires, which lets us create our mashups. And then we'll talk about how you create dashboards in our component called Mashboard. And App Maker is how you actually create the apps. And where all this stuff lands is the concept of an app store or an app depot or a marketplace, whatever you may have. And this is about an enterprise app store or marketplace that lives inside your organization. We're not talking about an app store or marketplace where you go and put apps and sell them. We're talking about where the apps go internally so that you can use them for your users internal and for your partners and customers external, all with end-to-end security.
So John, since we're talking about personas here, how about we ask everybody to tell us, how they would classify themselves?
Perfect. All right. Okay. So let's put up a quick poll here and choose one that best describes you. If none of these fit you well, then we give you an option that you're none of the above, and you can send us a chat in the window and tell us what role you are or what your role is, so that in the future we could understand about what we're the different roles that we're talking to.
These overlap, in my opinion, somewhat. I mean, I had a job in the past where I did a couple of these simultaneously. So if that's you, choose the one that's best, the one you do the most. We don't expect these to be kind of separate and completely distinct. So choose the one that's the best fits you. We'll give it about 10 more seconds. We want to make sure that everybody gets a vote here. And I won't tell you how the voting's going so far because I don't want to kind of influence the outcome.
All right, we have about 10 more seconds to go. And we have somebody who came in and said they're a system architect. Okay, that's great. That's definitely something that we'll put on in the future.
Let's go ahead and put the results up so that everybody can see the kinds of people that are in the audience today.
Great. So, well, unfortunately, we have the highest is none of the above. So, as we said, well, let's see, a few coming in, tech writer architect, somebody is a system architect, so maybe architect.
Yeah, we probably
would have been a good, good role to put in there. Silly, especially since we're architects here, that we didn't put that in.
You're an architect.
Must be a Freudian. Okay, so, well, that's good. So we have a pretty diverse set of group here. But really what we want to do is to get you acclimated to the whole notion of real-time intelligence and also understand how things are done differently. There's no better way to understand the difference between, say, traditional BI or application building versus doing things with new technologies and new tools like Presto. So there is a life cycle here and a flow in which things happen. The information sources, and this is really the key here, nothing would exist today that can be built as a solution here if there's not information. And information, as we know, comes from a myriad of places. We're not talking about solutions with real-time intelligence that just come from a data warehouse. That could be one source of information. You could be pulling data from one or more data warehouses, data marts, web services, news feeds, spreadsheets, SharePoint lists, even messages that may come off topics and queues. All types of disparate systems, and these include large systems such as SAP, ERP, Oracle Financials, PeopleSoft. The reason why we could even do this today and why we're even talking about platforms like this is because many of these platforms adhere to standards that exist today in web services, and all of these systems that at least the major vendors today support some sort of web service interface to their systems. You'll hear terminology such as REST or WSDL and SOAP. It's nothing really to dig too deep into. It's just a standard way of accessing information, not only from a read perspective, but also from a write perspective. And the nice thing about it is that it's based on standards so that these systems can be located anywhere in the world on a network that's reachable as long as you have the security access. Okay?
So, this life cycle, the major kind of artifacts are on the screen. You're going to hear these terms as John and I walk you through the various parts of the course, if you will. And we try to use terms that are, well, business user, power user friendly, right? Today's is supposed to be kind of a short version of our power user class. So once we've taken information sources and kind of captured that virtual interface to them, we call those mashables, and it doesn't matter whether that actual data source is a SOAP call, a REST call, an RSS feed, a spreadsheet, whatever. And then, of course, from mashables come mashups, and mashups are combinations of mashables, and that's really kind of the heart and soul of how Presto does BI, because we can, on the fly, kind of combine information from anywhere and create the kind of information that you need to make decisions. And then we need to put a face on our mashups. We don't just want a raw list of information. We call those apps because they're live. We are connecting to the information sources live, right? So these aren't reports exactly. They're a little more dynamic, a little more interactive than that. And so that's kind of the final step in this artifact lifecycle. You'll hear these terms over and over again. And again, this is supposed to be as interactive as possible. If we use a term or misuse a term and it's confusing to you, by all means, pop up a question because you're probably not the only one who has that question.
Okay, so we're going to do this from multi-phases here. The nice thing about Presto is that you can do things from the bottom up where you can go and register your information sources and they become mashables in the platform. That means they can be mashed up with other data sources, and we'll demonstrate that to you. And then we'll show you how to mash up the information. As we all know that the key here is to be able to quickly get data in a format that you need to have insight. That means that you're going to be getting information from multiple sources. You need to filter it, sort it, aggregate it, do all sorts of things to it to turn it into the form that you need. So there's no coding required to do that. It's all visual, and we'll show you how easy and how powerful it is to do that in Wires. And then we'll show you building apps. The nice thing about apps is they're easy and very visual to understand because you can see them. Very much like the types of apps that you hear Apple talk about and Google and everybody's talking about that are on devices, but these are web apps and these are enterprise apps that can run in all different destinations.
Well, I mean, remember, Presto is a real-time business intelligence platform. So the apps we're talking about today are not your typical Angry Birds or your personal scheduler. These are business intelligence apps, right? The goal is to put out information that helps someone make choices, to solve problems, make decisions. Oops, wrong version.
And where these go, these can go like Chris says. We have a concept of an app store or a marketplace, and these are enterprise, so they'll go in portals such as Liferay, SharePoint, your different mobile devices. There's no one place anymore, and the key here is that we have a mobile enterprise that you should be able to access your BI application from your iPad as easily as you can access it within Liferay. And that's the key here. We're talking about speed not only in getting information, but the speed at having access to it wherever you are. And things are changing. There's a tremendous amount of pressure out there to support new tablets that are coming into the enterprise. Not by design. We heard an interesting statistic that most iPads that are being used by employees in Fortune 1000 are not issued by the organizations. They're brought in by the employees themselves. So we have a whole new destination and form factor and a place where people are going to be using these apps. So we have to really make sure that we can do these quickly and have them ubiquitous and pervasive.
So we thought that the easiest way to give people a feel for that kind of hands-on experience with Presto would be to replicate a very fast, condensed version of what we teach people over the course of 2 days. And John and I, in fact, just earlier this week, spent 2 days in JackBe's latest course, which is what we call the Fast Track to Presto for power users. And it's a 2-day course, hands-on, that's all visual. And it uses all the tools that John has kind of already summarized for you. And it goes through the Mashable, Mashup app store lifecycle that we've already kind of talked about. And so we thought that we would actually go and use, in fact, the course materials from earlier this week, and use that as the hands-on experience we had for the day. What you're gonna end up seeing in various parts during the next, I don't know, half hour, are some of the steps you see on the screen, particularly units 2 through 7. We're certainly going to play around with mashables. I'm going to register 1 or 2. We're going to create mashups from some of the mashables that already exist in this training material. From the mashups, we're going to make apps, and before that, we're going to make what we call views. You'll hear more about that in a minute. And then last but not least, we're going to create kind of bigger collections of apps. We call those Sometimes we call those mashboards, and in the course materials, it's officially called the workspace. And so we're going to take a bunch of apps and put them all together, and maybe even interconnect them so that the apps aren't just standalone nuggets of information, but they have greater context, if you will. And we're going to push a bunch of the apps that we make over the course of the day to the Presto App Store. So to do that, I thought that the very first thing that we would do would be to actually show you some of the finished materials, finished products. So I'm going to be the administrator for, or one of the instructors for the course that John and I took earlier this week. So I'm going to go straight to my browser. I'm already logged in to the instance of that we used, that John and I in fact used earlier this week. And the very first thing I'm going to do inside of Presto is I'm going to go to the Presto App Store. Now, as the life cycle goes, this is typically one of the destinations. It's the last, or one of the last, steps in the life cycle. But I thought it would be good to, at the very least, kind of see what some of these what these apps might actually look and live and breathe like. So,
and Chris, as people are looking at this, just want to make sure as you see this is running, even though we're showing this that's running on a shared instance on the cloud, typically this runs inside your organization. And everything that Chris is showing you here is open, is part of our class and is part of our developer community. Mm-hmm. But when you really run it inside your enterprise, this will be completely authenticated and have identity management system.
Well, I've heard this before, so maybe this is an important thing to point out. When we talk about app stores, we're talking about something like the app store you might already know for the Droid market or for Apple. Except for that this is your app store. This is your enterprise's collection of apps that you curated and made available to your entire user community. So in a sense, there's no charge, right? These are apps made by you for your, for the people in your organization. But otherwise, it follows exactly the App Store principles. So for instance, I click on all apps, and in this version of my App Store, I have 7 of the apps available to me. Let's choose the simplest of ones, country population. That's not a very dynamic piece of information. It doesn't change that much. Nonetheless, someone has made an app against it, so if I wanted to, I can open that app up. And in fact, this is something we do more than your traditional app store. Our apps are interactive within the app store itself. So I've opened up the country populations app, and I can actually go and kind of interact with it right here inside of the store before I even kind of leave the store. I'm going to go to My Apps next, which are apps that I found I like and that I want to save and favorite and reuse in the future over and over again. And so, for instance, I have something called an earmarks pie chart. And for those of you who are in the United States, earmarks are a favorite of all of our representatives. Every time the budget process for the U.S. government comes along, your favorite representative earmarks stuff for your district. And here's an example of the total roll-up by department of earmarks for the last budget cycle. I think this is the 2010 budget. And then if I go back, I have 3 or 4 more apps. There's one called Pick Your News. In this case, it is a consolidated news feed app. It actually collects news from a bunch of news sources, aggregates them all together, and then searches through them based upon whatever topic I pick. So what's a good topic for the day? We'll stick to the political theme and the budget theme. So let's search on Greece, for instance. I got nothing in the news feeds I'm looking at. How about Apple? There you go, Apple, of course, and Microsoft comes up there as well. So this is actually a little more interactive, right? There's actually some user input that goes into the app as it runs. And then they get more interactive. Here's a great one. This one actually is one we did during the class, and it's actually a live news feed from the District of Columbia's police department. And these are actually events that happen, I believe, within just the last 4 hours in a certain district. So you can see that there was an automobile stolen earlier today. Yet another stolen auto. My guess is that a lot of them are stolen autos and thefts. It's a fairly common occurrence. And in fact, John's going to show you a little bit later, I think, how this app was actually created. Is that right, John?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. And then let me show you kind of, I think, one of the more sophisticated apps that I opened up earlier. I didn't talk about it much. This is actually a mashboard or a workspace, and it's got multiple parts to it. There is, in fact, tab number 1, which is effectively a U.S. Congress news feed where we can actually reach into any one of the items and pull back the news that kind of goes behind that item if I wanted to. I can actually look at tab number 2, which is a set of interactive apps that are interconnected to each other. For instance, if I choose one of the representatives on the upper left-hand app, you'll notice that in many cases the apps actually rewrite themselves to kind of filter themselves down to give you the details for just that representative. So let's pick a good one. We are here in Maryland. I wonder if my Maryland rep is on the list. Oh, he's on page 2 or page 3. We'll choose an easy one. South Carolina. I just made a trip there recently. So you know everything about your rep. You know everything about the earmarks that he put in by department, and then we've created a pie chart from that as well. And then last but not least, and we'll show you this one later, we've actually created a map that puts it down geographically for all of these different bits and pieces that go into the U.S. budget, who gets what in a relative sense. So we can see that, for instance, California gets more than its fair share of earmarks. So this is a fairly sophisticated collection of apps, and maybe at the very tail end, time permitting, we'll actually go in and maybe recreate a portion of this dashboard. Maybe, for instance, we'll take 2 of these apps and we'll actually connect them together so that we can see how we do kind of app interactivity. So at the point though is to talk about kind of to get a feel for the kinds of apps, what they do, the kind of information that can go into them. I think that the very next question then would be, well, gosh, how do you make those? So let me show you one we're going to make. You can time me on this in just a couple of minutes. So here is actually a very simple app. It has a single news source, which is the U.S. FBI's web news feed. And I'm going to go and I'm going to make this very same app and get it out into the App Store in, pick a number, 3 minutes. I'll try to do it in 3 minutes. So as we talked about earlier, the very first step is to kind of create that Mashable. So I'm going to do, well, actually, back up. I need the data source itself, right? So let's find the FBI RSS News. Easy enough. The FBI actually makes it very easy on their website. And we will take, we'll take all news stories. So this is the feed. We go back to Presto. I will register the FBI's news feed, conveniently labeled as feed. And there's the URL, and I can describe it. And categorize it if I want to, describe where the information came from, give it tags, for instance, such as FBI or government, so that other users can start to kind of find things not just by how I describe them or how they're named, but also maybe perhaps by tagging. And if this was a secure data source, which I think Johnson talked about a little later, I could actually pick the kind of authorization required. In this case, of course, it's public newsfeed. So I need to, of course, tell Presto who can use my, my new Mashable. In my case, I'm going to let everybody do it. And that's it. My Mashable is now captured within Presto. I can test run it as the owner of this newsfeed, and you'll notice I get back, well, I get back, for those of you who are familiar with RSS, I get back, go figure, a newsfeed. Well, what I'd like to do is put a much prettier interface, we call this a view, on top of this data. I'm going to actually use the, I think I'm cheating here, but I'm going to use the easiest interface of all the different view types that we have at our disposal, the pie charts, the graphs, the charts. I'm going to choose the one called Feed Reader because I have a feed. Like I said, I got to do this in 3 minutes. And then once I've chosen that view, in this case, there's very few properties to set, which is good in my case because I got a time limit. And I get to preview how my view will look. And then I go to the final step, and this is my FBI feed reader. And I've now put a face on my feed. And I'm going to make that my favorite face so that the next time anybody finds this feed and comes to Presto and test runs it, they'll get this instead of that less friendly kind of XML structure we saw before. And then last step, I'm going to make this into an app. So I'm going to ask for 50 news items per page. I get to configure visualizations. This is more important when we have more sophisticated or more views. I have exactly one view. I get to, again, preview kind of how this will look to anybody who opens up my app. And then I'm done. So I'm going to give it a name, Newsfeed app. And again, just like the Mashable we created earlier, we can categorize it, we can tag it, we can describe where the information sources come from. In my case, I want to be done, so I've officially made myself an app. This app, I know, I admit it looks a little bit like the view we just saw earlier, but this app is a completely self-contained solution. I could actually go and, from this point, send it to the Presto App Store, and I'll show you what it would look like in the App Store because it's already there. I could also share it with other users. I could go and embed this app inside of a website or a portal. And then, of course, since I'm the creator of this app, I could go and describe it in better detail. I could give it screenshots. I could update its metadata, set its security, all those sorts of things. This, I think, I admit, is the simplest of apps. It only has a single source of information. It has no security on it, and the interface is effectively a pre-built one. But it only takes a couple of minutes. I'd like to think that any user could kind of go through the 4 or 5 minute process I just went through to create the simplest of apps.
So Chris, a few people asked, are you actually going and getting the data and holding it inside Presto when you do this?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. When I open this app, in fact, when I opened, here's a good example. When I opened the FBI app, it went back to Presto. Presto looked at what goes behind that app. In this case, it was just a simple Mashable, and it went to the Mashable source, got the information back, and brought it back and displayed it in my app. So when we talk about real-time BI apps, that's one of the things we mean. We actually mean real-time because it's kind of fast, like you just saw, but also because the information is live. I mean, we are going to the authoritative system. Yeah, Presto does have, and mind you, I'm just the VP of marketing here, I shouldn't say this, but Presto does have caching capabilities for performance reasons. But generally speaking, the kinds of problems that we can solve well are the ones that require kind of the latest, freshest, best available information, not a day-old copy or a month-old kind of warehouse version of the information.
And this is a good example. News feeds are nice because this is actually a way that a lot of live feeds are published from the government, and it's showing you how you can get up to the second latest information as you need it. You could also be taking this information and mashing it together with historical information to do some other sort of correlation or analytics or anything like that. And you can share it, as Chris is showing you here. Simply, you can share it with others within Presto because everything has URL links to it. You can send it to somebody in an email. The nice thing about it is that it's extremely flexible, and as you send something out, whenever anybody gets it, they click on it and they're authenticated, authorized, and they could get the live app right there wherever they are.
Right. And then the last step, I won't do it, but I do want to at least kind of wave my hands over it, is how this app gets out to the curated app store. I'm a creator of apps at the moment. I'm that proverbial power user. But of course, there could be thousands of potential end users of my app, and so that's the reason JackBe helped create the app store for your organization. So you go through a curated process. It's kind of gated, if you will. I submit it, and Presto even tries to help you, check up all the things that you want to do for an app before you kind of push it out into the wide world. Give it good descriptions, categories, thumbnails, screenshots, whatever. And then it's as easy as clicking the submit button. And when you're done, then someone who is an app store administrator, like myself, can actually review those apps in the pending queue. And the pending queue, of course, isn't available to everybody. It's only available to administrators. So this is actually the app that I created just a minute ago and submitted to the queue. In this case, I'm going to decline the submission. I think it's missing the screenshots. Nobody put any pictures on there. That's always good for users to be able to see it in advance, and certainly not enough of them. So I'm going to send that back. Well, in this case, I'm going to send it back to myself for review. So I think that's the kind of the most basic workflow you can get, right? It goes straight from a Mashable with little overhead, little security, straight to an app out to the App Store.
So there's questions coming in about what is the UI here, and we mentioned iPad and iPhone. So it's all HTML5. Our visualizations will either use Flash or it'll fall back into HTML5. And it automatically detects that for the mobile devices that you run on, and even detects the mobile device and puts the appropriate gesturing UIs in. The point here is that even though you're able to create this once and publish it out, and Chris could as easily publish this out to SharePoint as you can to LifeRay Portal, as you can to iPad and iPhone and Android devices, and what it does is it optimizes on the fly the framework that's installed. And that's really key. Even though we're talking about the speed at which we create these and share these, we don't want to have to rewrite an app or rebuild an app for every destination.
And keep in mind that, again, we're shooting for the 80-20, where 80% of the work is done point-and-click style, right, by power users who go for hardcore developers. So we're trying to marry two things that can be difficult, I admit. We're trying to make it easy to publish just about anywhere, right, to a mobile phone, to a portal, out to the App Store. we're trying to keep it as simple as possible while keeping that same flexibility. I don't want to have to tell the user they have to recreate things a dozen times to get it to a dozen places. Heck, I don't even want them to really have to think about that much. I just want them to create and kind of reuse as much as possible. Let Presto do the adaptation as much as reasonable.
Okay, so now, thanks, Chris. Now we're going to switch over to me, and I'm going to show you how some of this gets built underneath. Again, we're doing everything from a power user builder perspective, and I want to show you how sophisticated some of the tooling is in Presto and how powerful it can be in creating what you want. So Chris was showing you the live feeds that were coming in from DC Crimes. Now, in order to build that, this is Wires, and Wires is a way for you to go and take the data sources that you have, the mashables that have been created, pull these out onto the canvas, start using the information, and to start applying blocks on it to do all sorts of things, such as merging data together, doing transformations on data. We have macros that are, you can have extensibility built in, so you can do analytics, you can do analysis on data, things such as Salesforce and SharePoint. All these are blocks that are accelerators into doing things visually. Well, this particular mashup was created, and this is, I'm going to turn this off just so that I can go and edit it. And this is what we built underneath. This took about, 5 minutes. And this allows you to put in your address. So when we were at the training session, we put in the address of the street. And from this, we have a service that actually goes and gets the lat long of the data of the address that we put in.
So let me ask you a question, John. You said we have a service. Is this a Presto service?
This is a service that was, I believe it's Yahoo's geocoding service that we put into the system, just registered in as a Mashable, and we're sending the data into it, and it's giving us, sending the address in, and it's returning us the lat long information. Okay? So then we have these blocks here that are going and extracting the information that we have, and we have the ability to extract the lat from here, and I'll show you that the path here is just being able to pull up the information that we have out of this here, which we're getting in from the extract, or sending in the address. Here's the lat long, and we're just drilling down to show you the XML data, but ultimately you could look at it like this. And then what you do is you send that information to the DC Crime service that gives you the information back. So as we said, everything comes back is moving in XML, but that's just the raw data that's moving. And it could be used as, and then shown here, you see all the data coming back. Sorry, here.
I see so much crime right near the building where you're taking the training.
Sorry, I'm having trouble here with my everything popping up at the wrong time here. Hold on 1 second, please. Okay, so we have this here where I'm sorting my data, and I have my mashup that's coming out. So this is actually driving the UI that we saw before that Chris showed you. And I'm going to, this has a name, I'm going to turn it back on. I'm going to save it again and turn it back on. And once I do this, this is actually made available so that others can use it. So the key here is the reusability and the ability to take the blocks. This information here lets me pass in an address, and then it gets me crime information for that address. And you see this address that I put here allows me to pass information in. And I'm going to show you what this actually means when I put a face on it or I turn this into an application.
So you used 2 different external sources.
That's right. I use one to get you pass in an address, and it returns you the lat and long information. Then I just had some blocks that pulled that information out, and then I sent that to the DC Crime source because it required lat and long as a separate instance. And then I just do whatever I need to do to sort it or transform it. Ultimately, I want to get the data in the form that I need to take action on it or see the information. Okay, so here's the data, and this is what it just looks like underneath as the data is coming back. I'm going to add a view on this information. I'll just show you what it looks like if I'm taking and putting just a simple view here, grid view. I don't need my lat long on this information because that doesn't help me here. And I'm just looking at this information, and okay, I'm going to finish that, and I'm going to give that a name. Okay, I see the information here. Now I want to add another view on it. and this is really how I want to see it. I want to go and put it on a map. That's because it makes a lot more sense if I'm looking at it from a geospatial perspective. I want to give some information of when this report happened. And let's see if I have a little, I'll put a little of the offense. And those are tooltips that'll pop up. Now, as when I take a look at this, I see the real-time data that's coming back. So even from the time that I'm creating this, it's going and getting the information as these things are happening. So as real-time as you want to get it, as fresh as the information is coming in, you can get this information. You also have the ability to snapshot information if you choose. But this is just showing you, giving you an example of how easy it is to get a real-time view of this. I'm going to save it out. And now I'm going to do what Chris showed before. I'm going to turn this into an app. So I'm just going to ask how many it's going to let me configure, and I have two visualizations here.
Go back to properties for a second. There's a lot more there than when I chose the feed reader view for my FBI news.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things that you can do here. You can set different pagination controls. You can control how many rows you want on a page. You can allow the user to have input and to be able to select or input information such as an address.
Right, like the news app I had earlier.
Yeah. So everything here we're designing to be reusable and configurable by others. What we don't want to do is we don't want to create an app that just has one address and shows you all the crime there. We want to be able to pass in different addresses into it and to be able to look at it at any point in time. And if you think about this, if you wanted to go and take what I just did here and configure it for your own address, then you could easily be able to do that. All right, so let's see what this looks like here. Apply it and run it. You'll see that when I have the address there, it lets me put it in. I'm going to say, well, let's change this a little here. I'll say my address. So it'll look something that's a little nicer to see here. Apply it. Okay, and put it in. And see the two views. And then once I finish this, I'm going to publish it out.
So in your case, you made an app that has, you actually used multiple views in your app.
Yep, multiple views, because sometimes I just want to look at the text information behind it, or other times I want to see it. I want to actually see it on a visual view here. And just as simple as that, in a few minutes, I took the mashup that was created, and I was able to go and put the different views on it. And I'm able to look at this very quickly. I can do the same thing that Chris showed before. I can push it out to the App Store. I can go and share this with others by just sending it out as a link. And I can share it with others very easily. So it's extremely powerful in the fact that you can separate the information, you can pass in search criteria into the information, and get essentially an app that's customized for whatever you're looking for, whatever information you need. Okay? All right, so now I want to go and show you a little more mashing that's happening in an app. And I'm going to create a new app from scratch. And I'll create a new mashup here.
Let's say, John, I hate to interrupt, but a couple questions about Google Maps.
Yep.
The one that we hear all the time, of course, came up again. Google Maps good, but some organizations prefer something else. They prefer Bing. They prefer Esri. They prefer their favorite map tool of choice.
Yep. We're agnostic to the map that you use behind it, whether it's Google, Yahoo, or Esri, or even a proprietary mapping system. We just treat that as essentially a library that you use to display the information. A map to us is no different than a line chart or bar chart. You can use whatever technology you want. We have some defaults built in, but ultimately we have a lot of customers that are running on Esri and Bing maps. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to build something that's a little more sophisticated in terms. I'm going to take out some news feeds that I have here. I'm going to search for some. So let's search for CNN. I'll pull out CNN News. Now, these are sources of information. I'll run it, and you can see the information coming back. It's going and getting the information.
So in the class we were in, the guy I was sitting next to this week, he pointed out something here that I think is probably worth pointing out to everybody. You're building your mashup on top of a mashable, okay? CNN. You could also just as easily over there on that My Stuff or those search blocks you're looking for. through, you can actually build them on top of other mashups.
That's correct. So what I'll show you after we're done with this is I'll show you that this mashup that I create is saved out, and then you can use it to build another mashup on. And I'll take I'll just do another search here for Yahoo News, and I'll choose the Yahoo Financial News.
So you're rebuilding the mashup that goes behind that app I showed in the App Store earlier, right? The consolidated news?
Yeah, and I'm showing you how you can get a little more control over it and a little more sophisticated in the things that you can do with it in a way that you can search it. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take each of these feeds and I'm going to merge them together. And again, we don't care if this is data coming from a database. We don't care if it's coming from web service news feeds. Merge it all together. Everything that we see happening here, even though looks like it's happening inside the browser, is actually being pushed into the server and running on the server. All right, let's see. So are we caught up? It looks like we're having network problems. Okay, great.
You're fine.
Okay, so now I'm going to take this out and I'm going to filter it down, and I'm saying I want to create two filters on this. I want to create this here where I'm going in. I'm going to take what's coming out, and I want to filter both on the title, and I want to add a input here. This allows me to go and pass in anything. I'll give this thing, I'll just give it a default value here, which is Europe. And this will let me filter on anything that has Europe in the title. I can also go and take the data and filter it by more information. So I may be taking it and looking at just Europe in the title, but if I want to add another condition to the filter, I can go and say, well, I actually want you to go deeper inside and look for anything in the description that has that same input I turn in, which is Europe, or whatever I decide to push. Okay, so I'm going to give this something that's a little more understandable. Instead of just input 6, I'll say my search. And now what I've done is I've taken this and I've applied it so that anything that has Europe either in the name or the title gets queried from all these news feeds that are passed in. So I'll go and I'll save this out. I'll give it a name. And I'll just give it out. And then what I'll do is I'll turn it on. That means it makes it available. And it's done. Okay. So I see the network catching up a bit here. All right. Now I've turned that on, given it a name, my 99 news feed search. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another mashup. And I'm going to take what I've just created here, and let me get that back. And it's called my 99. I made it something easy. I'm going to just pull it out. And this will come back with the data that I just created in the mashup. But I want to add some tech news feeds to it too. So I go and I pull this out, add another source to it. And don't forget, this underneath has 3 sources of information that's merged together and filtered. And then I take this and I want to merge it together with this also. So I'm able to quickly do this and merge it together and then get the results and then push this out as yet another mashup. So now I could be searching against other sources of information. So that's the reusability and the ability that I have to go and build on top of existing mashups. And these can get as sophisticated as you want. And at the end, we'll show you a very sophisticated mashup. And just like anything else, all of these are producing information, and then you can put apps on top. I want to switch back to Chris, and Chris is going to show you some examples in Dashboard of how we've taken the apps that have been built, and then you can start building the dashboards with them. All right.
So I think everybody probably remembers one of the bigger dashboards that I showed when I was walking through the App Store was this dashboard that had a lot of tabs to it. It had pieces to it. So it had this tab. It had an interactive set of apps that allowed me to choose the representative or congressman specifically that I wanted to look at the data for. And then it had this map towards the tail end that's kind of the intensity or kind of the distribution of earmarks across the country. I wanted to talk briefly about how, generally speaking, Mashport works and how this dashboard got made. And maybe actually do a bit of wiring. So let's start from scratch. I'm going to create a brand new workspace. We'll make it a real simple one. We'll make it a 2-column. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to find the apps that I want to put onto my dashboard. And we wanted to start with the list of earmark sponsors, our congressmen. So we'll put that on the left-hand side. And maybe we wanted on the right-hand side, we wanted the I think that's not the pie chart. The pie chart in addition to the detail list. So I thought these are all disconnected, right? No matter what I choose over here, nothing happens over there. This pie chart is for full information. This grid is for all of the information. Of course, building this dashboard, I think you saw it. Once the apps are made, the hard parts are really kind of choosing the kind of layout I have in my dashboard. We've got a lot of different choices. And the ones I've chosen the layout is choosing the contents of my dashboard, and that's really kind of drag and dropping. And last but not least is the wiring step. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that. I'll do one of the wirings really quick. So we're going to click on the left button, we click on Speaking Wiring. I'm going to choose the destination. In my case, we're going to choose the pie chart. And then I'm going to choose the source, and the source in my case, that's going to be the sponsor, I think, the sponsor grid. And then after that, I'll get connected together. What does the name have to be? And I think it's sponsor, right? When I click on a sponsor here, I want it to show over there. And that's it. So I basically connected the two together. Just put clicks, really just popping through. And assuming I do everything right, everything that shows up here becomes interactive. Notice, for instance, this particular congressman is heavily defense-oriented county when he comes to his earmarks. And that's again, we're trying very hard to make this a power user activity, right? The most sophisticated thing I had to think of here was which side I was on, who's throwing or who's catching side. And other than that, I've made myself a dashboard that is much more than just a singular or a set of disconnected apps and pieces of information. They become interactive with each other.
And these apps are, as you said, they're kind of agnostic to the other apps within their environment, and you're adding context by connecting them together. So and it's not just one app to another. As you're clicking on data and it's changing, it could be driving other apps in here. So the goal with Presto is to build these dashboards extremely quickly without having to do any coding to go and get this to work. Now these apps, not only the events that you see going back and forth in the clicking, work with just out-of-the-box Presto apps, but if you were to build apps in Silverlight and Flash, you would get the same effect here.
We don't do this in a class. We talk about it. We don't do this in a class, but certainly I could wave my hands over this. Presto dashboards can actually contain not just the apps we make, but also rich interactive stuff that comes from the outside world. This list is, some of these items I think are fairly obvious. Everybody probably has been, created their own iGoogle page and played with the proverbial hamster running on the wheel or the scheduling app or their own look into their own Gmail account. I can embed entire web pages here or entire objects, for instance, a YouTube video, things like that. And we can even embed just entire scripts here as well. So we tried to make this step as rich, and in our experience, the apps with the live data that are interconnected to each other, that's good for a lot of organizations, but sometimes that's not quite enough. Then, in fact, we need to be able to pull in stuff that isn't just a pure BI app.
Right. Now that you have, and all the data, all the exchange of information is happening right in the browser, but when it's going and retrieving information, it's going to the source, which could be a single source or a mashup. It could be located anywhere.
Well, and the live idea applies here too, right? I mean, if I'm going to embed a web page, I want the web page as of now. I don't want the web page as of last month. I think the same could be said for the YouTube video that I created. I mean, I expect that the rest of Presto is as live as the stuff you might look at in this list.
And once I create this dashboard, what can I do with it?
Well, then we're back to this dashboard is just like, well, it's just like everything else. It is, it becomes effectively a very large app or a wrapper around all these interactive apps so that I can share it as a unit. So we wanted to make workspaces as shareable as the individual apps that you can share. So once I give it a name, and you'll notice that this becomes a very similar pattern. Give it a description, describe, categorize it, describe where the information is coming from. Tag it so people can find it again. And then I can actually publish this to the App Store, that is, of course, I think what everybody's already seen. That is, in fact, one of my apps is actually this dashboard.
So a great question came in and said, well, a lot of analysts, when they're looking at information, of course, they like to see the real-time or live information coming in, but quite often they want to look at things at a point in time. Presto has the ability to snapshot at any point in time. So if I have a mashup that's driving all of these, I can actually go and snapshot it and build the dashboard right off the snapshot. And this is extremely powerful because if you're looking at something and analyzing it and you want to snapshot the data at a point in time, you can easily do that. Chris will show you how you can take the real-time data and he'll go and save it, but then he'll take a snapshot of it. And I think you have to save a snapshot first. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to go ahead and do it, but I wanted to show just kind of, it's back to what we've already done. It's the same interface, and it's the ability just to schedule the kind of snapshot you need. Some organizations need a regular, the use cases I hear often here are audit log. I want a regular picture of this mashup because it has moving financial data. And I need to know at the end of each business day, for instance, what that picture was. Yes, I like, generally speaking, to have the live financial information in my dashboard. But if I were to ask 2 months from now, what was I thinking on the day I made this decision, I want to be able to go back to the snapshots, and I want to be able to say, well, this was the information that was in front of me at that time.
Right. And snapshots just become yet another instance of the data source and scheduled over time. So we try to keep everything about data and information and apps and actionable intelligence. And as you can see, the speed at which we can do this is quite fast. And I'm going to show you one last thing now. We're going to switch back to me. Sorry for all the switching. And we're going to show you a sophisticated mashup that's actually driving HR and an HR-style app. So this is, again, wires. What you're looking at here is you're looking at something that is the problem that's trying to be solved here is that the HR organization works with their with the professional service organization, and they're always tracking employees that they have in terms of resources that are available and who needs to work on different projects. Now, the information that they need in order to determine if the resources are applicable or the right people for the job is that they need to take the particular employees they're tracking, and they need to go and match that information with the skills database, which happens to be in a SharePoint list that HR maintains, and they need other data that is coming from the users, but it's in the SAP HR system. So what happens here is for each user they're tracking in here, it sends that data to SAP, and this is an SAP NetWeaver system that's on the cloud.
Right, so this isn't a, for instance, SAP. This is actually SAP running somewhere.
Somewhere on SAP's.
Okay.
Is the real instance running.
And that SharePoint instance, where's that running?
That's running on somewhere on Amazon or Microsoft's Azure cloud.
Okay, but you're using live SharePoint, live SAP. Okay.
Yeah, this is all live. So anything can go wrong at any time here. Now, I join the information. And now you'll see that I'm joining the information with the employees I'm tracking to their skill levels. But what you'll see happen is what happens quite often, especially in the BI world, is that you just get way too much information, especially information you don't need. So I'm able to take that, and here's the ability in Presto to go and take the data that's coming out. You'll see all this information that's coming out. But really all I want is a smaller set of information. And I want the skill levels that's coming out here, and I need the birth date and the last name, but I also need the number of children for some reason here, right, and the marital status.
So this reduced step, this is kind of refining the data, right?
Yeah, this is basically saying I have all this data coming in, but to make some decisions on this, I need a smaller set.
So Ulysses, one of the people in the audience, and Ulysses, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, asked a great question. I think it's kind of related to this. It had to do with kind of data quality or data matching. You know, it isn't always convenient that the data has employee number here and employee number there. And I don't just mean the names of the fields. I actually mean the data itself, right? In some cases, we store employee ID, and in some cases, we store by employee name and date of birth.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah, how do you do that? So that's a good question. You'll see here on the join, you'll see in the SAP system, it's actually listed as ID. In the SharePoint system, it's employee ID. One of the benefits we have with Presto connecting to the live systems is we can look at the data that's coming back. So when I look at information coming back here, say from the HR skills level database, and I look at it, I can see that employee ID has the employee IDs in it. Even if it was called column A, it tends to work out that the SMEs, the people who understand the data, can identify which data columns are which data. So even if this says column C, at least because we're showing the data, it's very easy for an analyst to go and say, okay, column C is actually employee ID. I'm going to join that with the employee ID in this field here. And that's the key here, is that because we're looking at the data, we'll give you the ability to do fuzzy matches and things like that. But in terms of setting and connecting the data together, we show you the information to make it easier for you to connect it together.
I'd add to that once you've solved that riddle, for instance, of connecting these two particular systems together, it's of course a reusable, it's a reusable piece of information, right? This mashup then is something we build on later, so I don't have to resolve this problem over and over again.
Yeah. So good. Another question that came in said, I want to go and take this, and I want the last name and the first name separated out, but I also want a field where the names are together. Yeah, you can do that. As a matter of fact, you can take that, and we have a block. I don't have time to show you, but we have a block that'll let you go and transform this, and the transformer will actually let you go and combine two fields together and create a new field. So you don't have to just pull fields out or reduce a set. You can actually create virtual fields or columns where you're pulling data from multiple fields. You can even go and pull data and apply functions to it if you wanted. All sorts of things you can do to make this information understandable.
Not to beat this issue over the head, but I think it's a critical one. Ulysses, I had the same problem a year ago when I was creating my mashups for the World Cup. And inconveniently, I needed all the country names for the participants in the World Cup in a standardized ISO format. Inconveniently, the FIFA World Cup website listed, for instance, the Ivory Coast as Côte d'Azur. So I actually had the very same problem. I knew they were a match, but of course, if you asked a computer to match the two, it didn't know. So I actually had to kind of teach my mashup to actually kind of do that kind of problem.
There's all sorts of things that you can do here that you can run. We have a whole bunch of macros that will do things on the data for you to try to get the data in a different state, whether it's normalizing or doing fuzzy matches. This is extensible. And the ultimate result, as you see here, is the information that I need. Although it may look a little underwhelming in terms of the information, the fact that it's coming from those three systems, and at any point in time as data is changing and I go and refresh, I get the latest information. Okay, so we're right at the top of the hour here. We want to close out. We wanted to show you a lot because this is really a training and walkthrough of the product. And now we're going to finish up here and hand it over to Jess and Chris, and they're going to just tell you what your next steps can be.
I hope everybody agrees that we did our best with the 40 minutes we had. We do have 2 days worth of very thorough training. There's certainly a lot more to what we talked about. I think Ulysses' question is a good one, for instance, that's covered in the class in great detail. So what I'd like to give you all the opportunity to do, of course, is to learn more. Certainly at JackBe.com, you can join our community for free. It only takes a couple seconds, actually. Download a copy of Presto. If your organization is heading towards real-time business intelligence, certainly we'd love to hear what your thoughts are, what your problems are, and try to help you with them. In fact, I'll go so far as to give you the address not only for our developer community, but also for, of course, our training courses. If the 2-day course is interesting to you, you can just register online. But with that, on behalf of Jess, John, myself, everybody here at JackBe, I want to thank everybody for spending the last hour with us. I do hope you agree that this was as spin-free as possible and as practical.
Spin-free, too.
It's hard.
Didn't cost anything.
Hard to say, yeah. Certainly, we thank you for joining us and hope to see you in future webcasts. And if you have any questions, you are always welcome to reach out to us through our community or through our website. Everybody have a great day.